Now, as we all know, Friday was a sad day following the gory accident that occurred on the Techiman-Kintampo Road, which claimed about 57 lives. And then there was the other ghastly accident at Ikumfi, Duakwa, near Mankesim, that left 8 dead and about 70 injured. So, question, how do we prevent these needless life-claiming accidents from happening? Well, Maxwell Agbagba joins us from the VIP station right here in Accra, which is the originating point of one of the vehicles in the Techiman accident. Maxwell joins us now with conversations seeking an answer to this all-important question.
Some have described it as a bloody Friday. Sometime last week, 2 Intercity buses were involved in an accident, and about more than 50 people actually died in that accident. We also heard of another one that same day in the central region. About 10 people died in that accident as well. More than 60 people died in one day. And then also we know that sometime in January, we've actually received the figures, about 190 people died on Ghana's roads. Well, today we are here at a VIP bus terminal. We know this place is very busy all the time. A lot of people getting onto some of these intercity buses to different destinations. We're here to speak to the people who matter, the people who really matter when it comes to conveying you from Accra or from one destination to the other, to speak to them about some of the concerns that we've heard about Ghana's road. Well, we've been here for some time, and the refrain here is that dualize the roads. They say the dual carriageway is one of the major steps that we can actually use in solving the issues of accidents and the carnage that we've all seen on our roads. Let me move and then speak to the general manager for the VIP bus company here at Akabre from Pond Manto. I mean, you know him as a broadcaster. He's not the general manager here at this place. And Akabre, you're welcome to join us.
Thank you.
You've heard from your drivers, you've heard some of the issues. We came here some minutes ago, and a lot of things that we heard, has to do with dual carriageway. You're saying you should dualize our roads because they say that sometimes it's really dangerous on some of the stretch that they use.
In fact, it is the #1 issue that are on the lips of the drivers, because we have single carriageways, and then the number of vehicles in the country is increasing by the day. When you apply, say, the Central Corridor route, hitherto you could do Accra Kumasi in, say, 4 hours. But now you are doing over 6 hours on the basis of the congestion on the way. And as you talk about the single carriageway, when the congestion comes about, then the drivers are stressed. And then you have a long stretch of motor vehicles. And when the driver is unable to negotiate an overtaking, and then the driver has to wait and then crawl, as you may put it, then it brings about a lot of difficulties. With the Accra Kumasi Highway, yes, one would have thought that when we are able to do the dual carriageway from, say, Nsawam, you realize from Achimota New Plan, you get a dual carriageway up to Nsawam Junction, then there is a new road up to Signboard, from Kwaf Kro to Apejan Kwanta. The other carriageway, now we can see it has been done, but then we go by the single carriageway. Between Apejan Kwanta and Bunsu Junction, it's a single carriageway, though a brand new route. And then from Bunsu Junction to Nkoko, that is also a single carriageway. Then there's a short dual carriage between Nkoko New Road to Asuna. Then it's okay. Between Asuna and then Ejoso, there's also just a single carriageway. So you can imagine the number of vehicles on such roads, especially the articulated tracks. Then they are not moving, and that brings about a lot of difficulties and challenges for drivers plying such roads.
Okay, so what we are learning now is that because these are just because these roads, some of the roads that you've mentioned are not dual carriageway, there's a lot of congestion on the stretch. Sometimes stress sets in, for some of the, drivers, and in some instances, because it's not a dual carriageway, you have some big trucks also moving, just sometimes on a narrow stretch, and this affects, some of the drivers as well, you say?
Certainly. We hear of head-on collision bringing about. In 3 years ago, February, there was an accident on Kintampo Highway involving a high occupancy coach. It was a head-on collision. We suffered 53 persons dying. In the current issue that we talk about, this accident is a head-on collision. So when we have a dual carriageway and then we avoid the use of the single carriageway, you are not likely to have a head-on collision coming about. Then we can limit the issue about drivers having to rest and undergo training and then conforming to the rules on the highway. So certainly we have come to a situation where we can safely say that single carriageways are outdated. No developed or under a developing country would want to use a single carriageway in the 21st century. So we should seriously consider doing the dual carriageway if it involves drivers having to pay tolls on such safe dual carriageways. We will certainly consider same.
Okay, great. Now, before I move to the drivers and speak to the drivers, another thing that we've heard is how some of these drivers who go long distances sometimes get tired. Are there any interventions to ensure that, okay, if a driver is tired, there's another driver who's going to help him? Are there anything like that in place?
Yes, certainly. Any driver who travels beyond Kumasi to the 3 northern regions and the upper parts of the Brahafo regions, we employ 2 drivers. Okay. One driver has to assist the other in order for them to get there safely, and then there are rest stops on the way that the driver stops. So, for instance, from here to Tamale, the driver will stop at Lindador and stop at Kintampo. Though they have 2 drivers, there are 2 stops that the driver has to take some time off and then stretch.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. But I don't know if you have anything else to say. Okay, so we can move now to speak to some of the drivers who frequent this long distance or this stretch that we're talking about. The drivers of the Intercity buses here. I want to find out from them also what the experience is like. A lot of them, we spoke to them earlier, told us about the danger, involved when you're using a road that's not a dual, carriageway. Experience as a driver. What have you seen? What have you observed on our roads?
Okay, a road in the double road there. It's a cars not also. By 2-3 years time, no. Say, Kwana into me double road. We free to do Kumasi no. We can take more than 8 hours.
Okay. Well, he's also making a case for a dual carriageway. He says there are a lot of cars on the road now, and there's a lot of congestion. So, in some years to come, if we are not able to go the dual carriageway for most of our highways, it's likely that you spend 8 hours before you get to Kumasi.
Until you say I'm going to abandon no year. If you say no, I say you free just to cry and so talk a lot of accidents. See what Kwanos no crown and easy. We say, on the Kwanos 20, Kaka Jinan Kakre Bia. On the old banos, so one to me as the dinner. Now I say a pretty lot of accidents.
Accidents,
who bear 3 accidents, heavy ones.
Well, he said yesterday when they were coming from Ejisu Kumasi, there's a lot of accidents, on the Accra Kumasi road. About 3 accidents, he says. Okay.
And a contractor also just so run about no year through one on the Jumayan Sweni. Why you Kwana my and getting it into tracks and also Edruana or Blokwana and as a Kwana then. I see.
Well, he's also not impressed about the contractor who is constructing some part of the road in Ejisu. But apart from dual carriageway, no, a DMBM na is also a problem. Ebinum yenu mukaso say a kwanin so ye too street lights and so potholes
markings no do any so and portals so so ntu no todo hu marking kakra binyam say wonne so afa kwan no so acha obetima study say bia ha udru ha yesi ya na bia won fu through Fridays omo kwa yerum kura private cars ni ade obo onim kwan no so or kwa no anse wo kontoko pie bibi so a e bia wo anu udi nanim wo be break but e bia no antima break e betima obetim dia bo car no to ana bibi etisa.
Well, he has been corroborating what some of his colleagues here have been saying, that some of the roads are poorly lit, they do not have road markings, and sometimes it's difficult driving on that stretch. He says for commuters or for drivers who really do not know, who are not familiar with the road, sometimes they can screech to a halt. Maybe you're on top speed, just screech to a halt, and then you will be driving safely. But if you don't take time, you hit them, from the rear. These are some of the concerns they are raising. But we want to speak to some of the passengers also. Let's get onto one of the buses here. Let's speak to some of the passengers. Let's find out from them how safe they feel when they are traveling to other parts of Ghana, to other regions as well. Let's get to hear from them. Hello, you're welcome to JoyNews. You're welcome to JoyNews. My name is Maxwell.
Yvonne.
Okay. Yvonne, tell me, how safe do you feel when you're traveling from one region to the other, especially at night?
I'm not so safe. I don't like to travel at night.
Oh, you don't like to travel at night? Why? Any reason? Any special reason?
I feel it's safer during the day.
You feel it's safer during the day. So during the day, as a passenger, what exactly do you do? Do you sleep? Because there are concerns that a lot of the passengers also sleep. They don't really engage the drivers. They don't really stay awake to watch what is going on the road.
Okay, so I don't really sleep, but I don't want to disturb the driver either.
Okay. So you wouldn't sleep, but you'd also don't want to disturb the driver.
No, I wouldn't.
Okay. If you have any advice to give to the drivers, if you have any call that you want to make to government, what exactly would that be? Okay. If you want to make a suggestion to government, what would it be? Okay, so there are some who are saying that we have a lot of accidents because our roads are a lot of them are single roads, not dual carriageway. So there are calls to make them dual carriageways.
Okay, I don't really have an opinion.
Okay, so he really does not have an opinion about that. But let's speak to other passengers. Let's find out from them how safe they feel when you're traveling on Ghana's roads. Sir, you're welcome to JoyNews.
Yeah, but I'll make a key.
Okay. Me perceive maybe so say, who took one or Ghana coins so who feel safe now?
You mean be over high, Mrs. Shum. I took one idea who say Uncle Ponsa. You can't idea. What the other echo. A moon who dear. A moon who pa and take gun and pen from somewhere. Quano, whom we could see sisters when a my year took one as made Adrian. Yet me says a committee came, make my dimmer, madam, Nakama, some dream.
Okay.
Kai meeting me to say the meeting fee. And the council Nakasm, your council, necessary I could do fit to do. You mean you must walk up, and so I call, but no driver, some side. I don't know.
Well, he says there's a lot of anxiety traveling on Ghana's roads, and it is his wish that government will put the mechanisms in place to make it a lot more safer. He says he feels very comfortable, in here in this chair, but he would love that the road would also be safe as well for the passengers. So basically, this is what is happening here at the bus terminal here at Circle, the VIP bus terminal. You heard from the general manager himself, Adakabre from Pomanso, echoing some of the concerns that some of the drivers here raised. We heard from some of the drivers as well. Well, the major concern here is to make our roads dual carriageways, to dualize the roads, make them properly. Increase the lighting on those highways, and then fill the potholes, and then make it a lot more safer for passengers, drivers, and all stakeholders.
And of course, that was Maxwell Agbagbak, who was interacting with some travelers at the VIP station. And just to correct an earlier point, the bus that was involved in the accident on Friday was from the VVIP station. That's a different company altogether. So it did not originate from the VIP station where Maxwell was interacting with passengers today. Right, now let's stay on this topic because a lot of questions are also being asked about the response time to the accident on the Kintampo Road. We know that it happened at about 1:30 in the morning, but we know that as at 6:30, in fact, actually as at 7:30, a whole 6 hours after the incident, there were still people trapped under one of the buses. So we want to ask questions about our emergency response time. And one of the emergency services, of course, is the Ghana Ambulance Service. Roland Walker is now interacting with their CEO, Professor Ahmed Nuhu Zakaria. Let's join them now. Right, Roland, I'm hoping you can hear me.
Hello. It is important for us to get the whole conversation and the narrative ongoing about the emergency responses that are needed in relation to the deployment either with ambulances or the need for the medical hospitals that would need to treat some of these accident cases to be on the alert. But of course, the National Ambulance Service is always at the center when we tend to have some of these goring or tragic incidents. And so we decided to speak to the Chief Executive for the National Ambulance Service, Professor Ahmed Nuhu Zakaria. And it's always critical that we ask the questions. But what will be your own observations about the gory incident, the horror that we witnessed on Friday?
Basically, if you want to look at the whole road traffic situation, you'll see that it goes beyond an accident. Sometimes it's human errors. And that's why even the definition has moved from road traffic accident to road crashes. And so if you look at it as a country, we are not really doing well when it comes to these road crashes, especially if you look at the frequency and the severity of all the issues that we come across. But let me put the discussion in perspective. Now, if you look at it, once there is an accident, definitely it involves the vehicle, it involves pedestrians, and sometimes it involves the motorcyclists. The question then is, which of the situations are we seeing as a very common occurrence? And obviously it's the vehicular one. Now, it has to do with the fact that many of these drivers don't obey simple road regulations. But if you go beyond that and you want to discuss the road crashes as a totality, you're going to look at it as a post-crash response. As a country, what are the systems that under normal circumstances are supposed to be put in place to remedy some of these situations? And I'm going to describe how the emergency response system works and what the ideal situation is supposed to be and what we are doing as a country. You know, normally road crashes happen everywhere, but in those countries, they will always have their systems well addressed. Number one is the first responder system. Number two is the emergency medical services system. And number three is the in-hospital emergency response system. If you look at the first responder system, in many countries, they have a group of people who form the first responder response system. Number one is the police service. Number two is the fire service. Number three are volunteers within the community. So what happens is that once there is a road traffic accident or a crash, they are always the first to be called upon, and they are the first to arrive at the scene. They start normally with the basic first aid, and then later the emergency services come to take over. Then the emergency services also, you know, they also have a group that will definitely form part of it. Will be the National Emergency Response System, in this case the National Ambulance Service. They will have the private emergency services. They also have some corporate entities that may also be running ambulance services. So they also have a group of people who will add up to the response. Then when it comes to the in-hospital response system, you know, in many countries, they even have hospitals labeled as level 1 trauma center, level 2 trauma center, level 3, level 4. And the reason they've designated them is that each of them has a capacity, what they do and what they don't do. So even if you have that, it means that once there's an emergency, you even know where to send the patient to. But coming back to this discussion and putting it in perspective, normally, how does the accident happen? You know, when there is an accident, we have something they call mechanism of injury. Even the mechanism of injury will let the health personnel know the type of injury that is likely to come out of that. For example, we have the head-on collision. It has a particular group of injuries that will come with it. Then you have the rear impact injury. You have the side injury, and you have the rollover. So even the mechanism of injury itself, once you know the mechanism of injury, you know the type of injury that will come with it. And because of that, the medical personnel already know the type of injury that is likely to come based on the mechanism. So that itself is another issue. Now, if you look at that and you move away from it, you also now see the severity. When there is an accident, you are likely to have 3 categories of people. Those that will die no matter what you do, they are in one category. Those that will do well, whether you intervene or not, and those that will definitely benefit from an early intervention. These number 3 are the ones that everybody should be worried about. Because as for the first 2, there's nothing you can do about it. Now, in terms of the number 3, they are the ones then that will bring the concept of the triage. And your triage is a French word meaning trier, to sort the patients out based on the severity of injury and how they should receive care. So in that case, we have 4 categories of people when there is an accident like this. Number 1 are those that are critically ill, who will definitely benefit from medical intervention to either save their lives or save a limb. Then you have they are the ones they label the red. Then you have the yellow. The yellow group are the ones who are critical, but they are stable. So they definitely can be attended to after the red group. Then you have the third, who are the green. We call them the walking wounded. They are the ones that they are injured but minor and they are able to walk. And then the last group are the ones who are dead. So in terms of you, the lay person, how will you categorize these people when you arrive? This is the advice we give everybody, because it's a moral responsibility of every citizen to be able to provide some little support in terms of accidents like this. So when you arrive, the first thing you have to do is to make sure you control traffic, because you need to alert oncoming vehicles that there's an accident. If you don't do that, more casualties are likely to be registered because the other oncoming vehicles will not know of the accident. So that's the first responsibility. Ensure that you have a way of controlling oncoming traffic or alerting oncoming vehicles that there is an accident. So that alone, you are saving lives. When that is done, then now you arrive at the scene itself. There are events at the scene, events during the transportation, and events when you arrive at the health facility. So at the scene, how do you manage? The first thing is to make sure that your own safety is important. So your safety is very important. You do what they call scene size up. You quickly scan the environment and be sure that there's no imminent danger, like explosions, fire, or maybe if there's even flooding.
And then subsequently you take care of the rest, because but those are the things that are the standard operating procedures. But in this related instance, it looks like your men, and I don't know where or which of the operational points they were coming from or being deployed from, they delayed because, say, if you look at the accident happened in the wee hours of the morning, and then they had to take a number of hours before arriving.
You know, normally we will only know when the call is sent to the dispatch center, because sometimes the impression is that once the announcement is on radio, automatically all the emergency services should be responding.
Why not?
That is the key. That is when we have the information. Because if it happens that at the time the announcement is being made, no one has placed a call to the dispatch center, or none of us is monitoring radio at the time, definitely will not get to know. It is when someone, and that's another thing I need to add, one of the first responsibilities is to activate the emergency response system by calling the emergency services. You know, if you call 191 to the police, 192 to fire, or 193 to ambulance service, all these emergency services will be activated. Once there's an accident, all of them are key. So depending on who gets the information first, the rest will definitely be alerted. In our case, you know, we are scattered across the country. What then happens is that if it happens that at the time of the accident or the incident, the immediate vehicles or ambulance station is out of commission for one reason or the other, it means they have to inform.
What happened in this instance?
In this instance, the immediate ones definitely will not be available.
Where was it?
You know, it happens on the way to Kintampo, right? And you know, we have an ambulance station in Kintampo. We have BA. So in that case, the Brown and Hartford Regional Dispatch Center will be the one who will be activated. The regional coordinator with the regional administrator will then look around for all the immediate available vehicles. And so that is normally what happens in this case. So the response time will delay because they will have to move from a distance towards the accident.
Several hours, because it took several hours.
Absolutely. Because you see, Raymond, if we put this discussion in perspective, you realize that as a country, we have challenges in terms of our fleet. And that's why the government is trying to solve that problem by buying more vehicles. But currently, the number of vehicles in BA are not many.
How many?
you know, they are supposed to be 12. So about 4 are working now. And so mostly, and even beyond that, that's another reason why the nearby stations are normally asked to go and support. And so although they will respond all right, it's just that the delay definitely will take place. But obviously, these are temporary problems that we know definitely if we get more vehicles, we'll resolve that issue.
But we're told that you are getting new vehicles?
Yeah, we are getting 275. And so each...
Are they already at the port?
Not at all. The procurement process is ongoing.
We're now through or going through procurement processes.
So that phase is over. So we are now moving to the production period. And once that is done, obviously the vehicles will start arriving into the country.
It looks like definitely the ordinary citizen is not aware about how to activate the emergency response numbers. It could be one of the means by which then we could have the response mechanisms activated. Is that the case? If you take a look at it?
Generally, one of the education is that once there is an accident like this, every effort should be made to get the emergency response systems, the fire, the police, and the ambulance service. The reason is simple. The police have a major role in terms of controlling the traffic. The fire department, they participate in rescue and extrication. You know, when the casualties are trapped in the vehicle, you can't just pull them. They will have to, with their machine, come and cut open the parts of the vehicle and free the victims, what we call the extrication, and then the rescue. So when that is done, then the emergency services, that is the ambulance service, then they provide the medical care.
Professor Zakaria, you are painting a picture of we have a very dormant response service, because you're saying having only the ambulances from the National Ambulance Service is not enough. We need complementary emergency response institutions there.
Absolutely. You know, it's a teamwork. And, you know, let me also explain the trauma chain. You know, there's a trauma chain that forms the continuum of care in road crashes. Number one, even the first responder, the bypasser or bystander, they call them, has a role to play. So we have the bystander first response or first aid. So that's number one. It's key. The emergency services dispatch is the next chain.
So that's Roland Walker there interacting with the CEO of the National Ambulance Service, Professor Ahmed Nuhu Zakaria.